Okay, so I'm just taping some blocks to my frame. If I can get in there, there's quite the gap underneath, so it's not that hard. I will show you what I'm doing. These blocks aren't the best, but they're the right thickness when combined. This tape isn't the best either, but I don't want anything on here like permanent like. Basically, this surface here, so these blocks kind of equal out that gap, because I'm going to take my, yeah, and that's weird, eh? That's all metric. Something some of you guys don't see all the time. I always use standard though, unless I'm working on something explicitly metric. So I'm going to tape these on a little better, because I'm going to clamp my straight edge to the frame, and I want it to get, I want my straight edge to be pulled evenly and not to have a big gap under one end. And like I say, this tape isn't the best, but a piece of 1x2 lumber and a paint stir stick are the perfect thickness when stacked on there. So I've got these weird vice grips, which I don't know what the heck they're for. Maybe they're for doing stuff like this, clamping around pipe. I'm not sure. If any of you guys know, you can comment though. But basically, come down here so you can kind of see what I'm. So I got to line this up nice and even with that short little stretch. It's not the easiest to see, especially when I clamp this. Clamp it like so. Kind of get right on the edge of that. And just like that. And now my straight edge is on there. I don't have to try and hold it. I can line it up. I could even maybe get something else and just kind of even it up with that. Maybe not. That's too uneven. But I think I'm just going to have to kind of eyeball this from back here somewhere and see that it's basically even. I'm also going to eyeball it with my top of my swing arm here. Now this little area here, that's not going to change too much when the swing arm is mounted. We need our light on, I think. Where the heck is it here? So this here, you can see now what I'm trying to do. I need to try and line that up. I do plan on lowering this rear end eventually by getting, I don't know if I'll swap to the newer style shocks. That's going to be a bit of work. I might just get the kit to lower these shocks for right now. It's a Burley kit. I think the number is B28-250 for the Burley kit to lower the 84 to 88 shocks. So I might do that, but that being said, like this angle isn't going to change much when I lower that. So I want to line this up so that the frame looks correct from the side. It's basically even up here and carries on that line. And this is very important, not so much for where I'm cutting it, but for how it's going to look after with what I'm going to do to finish the thing. So I have this eyeballed. I basically looked from kind of this angle. I got this fairly even, this here with this edge here. And this basically fairly even with the top there. It might need to come down. I can do this later though. For right now, I'm just going to scribe a line with a razor blade because it kind of works the best for this sort of thing, especially if you're on a painted surface. So this is where the fun begins. The nice thing with a blade like this is it's hardened steel. So you're actually going to make a mark in the metal, not just through the paint. And so if you carefully have to grind off or remove your paint, you can actually see where your line is in the metal still. Okay, so that's one line. Basically, I'm going to zero this out on that angle, wherever that mark in my steel ends. And I'm going to zero this one out. I got to have a look here. Zero that out with this top corner. Right there. Zero that out there, and then of course it moves. And that right there is my cut line. I do not want to cut any deeper than that with my Sawzall. But the nice thing, like I said, was scraping through the paint into the metal, is that when I chop this off with my Sawzall and I pull out my angle grinder and I start going down to that line, if the paint comes off, the line is still there. I can always line up my ruler when I get this off of here and just redo those marks real quick and carve them into the steel as deep as I need to so that I don't lose my final line. And that'll also kind of give me a guide of where to go with my weld when I fill that in, because I'm probably going to hack these off with the Sawzall, and then I'm going to fill in this with weld, and then I'm going to do all my grinding probably in one shot, but we'll see. Okay, so we're setting up on the other side to make our marks. Now this side, we got all this wiring here. I don't want to take a bunch of stuff off this bike right now. One day I might pull this I probably will pull this whole thing apart, redo my base gaskets, redo a bunch of stuff on it. But I'm really impatient with projects, and I just want to get this thing together so it looks cool. Anyway, the vice grips are actually clamped on that wire, but they're very loose. So I got to be very careful not to bump anything. That original paint from 1987, you're ruining it. Making it look cooler, I think, anyway. Some of you guys out there are totally going to disagree with me and probably say, why are you ruining such a beautiful example of an 87 Softail? You know what? There are so many of these bikes on the road. Harley Davidson was selling tons of them by 87. It is a beautiful original example. It's not in mint condition, like it's kind of beat up. But and I really don't like messing with stuff that's in original condition, but like I got to do this mod. It's just going to be so cool when it's done. It's going to be tremendous, quite frankly. All right, I'm getting ready to cut these things off. So, kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. But I got this tape right where my line is, just so I can see, because that line is kind of hard to see from this angle. So, here goes nothing, or everything. Gotta kind of get at the right angle here. Get on that line. Oh, bike is moving.
Still up on the stand?
That is not cool.
Still up on that stand?
Yeah, it just rolled back a little bit, so that's not neat, man. That ain't too neat. I'm gonna have to secure it a bit. Okay, so the bike started rolling back, which was pretty sketchy because I looked down at my stand here and it was only on the back edge And so we had to just lower this and put the bike back on its kickstand. I couldn't even get the saw out. I just kind of gave this a bit of a whack just to loosen up the saw blade in there. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck here holding the saw, and two other people are getting the bike on the kickstand. Anyway, I'm going to finish this, so time to fire this back up. I don't want to hit my swing arm. It's one thing I really like or don't like about these saws is it's very easy to hit stuff from in behind with your blade. And that is that. Man, that is heavy. Holy smokes. I might like hang on to these for like sledgehammers or something. That's crazy. Look at that thing. Like, that is some weight there. Now, there is one side chopped off, and the other side not chopped off. So, what looks cooler? I think the side that's chopped off looks cooler. Oh, pretty close. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is clean out this paint in here because I've got to fill this with weld so I can contour it nicely and it looks like it was a factory made part, like the frame. So I have these real cheap Dremel die grinder bits that I bought on Amazon. Like most everything like this. They're nothing special. And I don't know where the heck my Dremel is right now. I'm sure it's around somewhere, but I'm going to use my my drill. So I'm going to use this round one probably because that contour in there is round. And these are kind of smaller than I thought. But it's probably actually good because this surface area is fairly small. So I just need to clean the paint off real good so I can get a nice weld in there. Okay, another trick here. If you don't want to get metal shavings, I don't really care much about right here. It's not that big of a deal for what I'm doing. But in general, if you're working on something like this, and I mean, you could wrap everything up first, I guess, but a good trick is to get one of these magnet dishes like this, put some tape on the bottom, and just stick it on there somewhere. And this might not work amazing, but that's going to grab a bunch of the metal as it's falling and keep the mess out. And then the tape prevents it from just being stuck to the magnet after. Works pretty good usually. So when you're working with something like this on a drill especially, or something lower RPM, you want the bit to be pulling like a wheel, pulling away from you. If it's pushing toward you like this, it's gonna do that. Okay, so if you got to do that kind of area, you're better off flipping it over so it's pulling away from your hand so you can actually kind of leverage it. Looks pretty good. Time to do the other side. You can see how well this magnet dish trick works. The whole thing will collect filings, shavings from metal, so, but having the main magnet covered, that definitely helps. So I did have to go back to the other side, clean it up a bit more. I'm going to check this side for the same thing, and I can get in real easy from this angle. And that way I can clean out all the corners. It's hard to get the right angle in there so that it doesn't skip. I think my battery's running low. That's okay, I think I'm done. My wire speed up, heat is up pretty much all the way. Kind of got a crappy ground here. I'm gonna have to figure this out. Okay, got a better ground here. I also ground off the paint around here, which I forgot to do before. And I put the clamp on the other side, so hopefully that works better. Maybe not. You want to make sure to clean your weld as you're going. This is just a crappy little flux core welder, Mastercraft actually. It works pretty good for most things. I have it cranked up right now, but I found with this thing, between welds, you really got to clean the thing, otherwise you won't get a good contact. It's definitely just going to take some messing around. You also got to keep your tip clean and the wire cut off. Definitely burning paint now. Another reason you want to scribe your lines into the metal is because the paint is going to burn off. As soon as you do this sort of stuff, you start grinding, like take the paint off and you lose all your lines, it's not going to be good. If the bike falls over, I just have to make sure not to try to grab it there. At this point, I'll probably just jump out of the way. It's definitely messing up the paint job. You can kind of see my line still. I'm going to come up in here a bit. I can see why a lot of people don't bother doing this part. Quite a bit of extra nonsense just to have it look a little better. I think it looks a lot better, but it's all pretty warm. Try and use the ground strap from the battery. They can hold hands, those two. And just remember, I'm not a welder, so You guys that actually weld for a living, you're probably just horrified right now. But I mean, luckily this is not structural. It's just basically cosmetic for fussy people like me, I guess. My wire speed is too high too, because it's basically just carving out a hole as I go. That looks pretty good for that side. We're gonna do the other side now. Okay, wire speed up a little. It's a good thing to do even if you're using a MIG welder, to just clean between your what you're doing. Leather is pretty good if you don't have anything better. It's at least hard to light on fire compared to fabric and stuff like that. If I had my Dremel, I could use a little wire wheel for that. Work a lot better. This stupid hammer. What I'm gonna do, this thing is loose. Come on. Should work. Next, I'll be cutting the excess off with the grinder. I might have to scribe my lines again. It's looking pretty close. Hard to tell where my line is. Probably gonna have to fill this as I cut it and do all that stuff. I think that's it for welding. Okay, I got to rescribe part of my line, and then I'm gonna take this cutoff wheel on the grinder. This is very crucial here. I'm not going to try and work down to that line with the cutoff wheel because it's just not enough material for any forgiveness there. But basically I'm going to come up here and just cut a bunch of this off, and if I can get it within like a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch or something, damn wind, then that's just fine. So we'll fire on these earmuffs here and get going. And by the way, don't buy a Craftsman angle grinder. They're absolute garbage. It gets really hot when you use it. It's got this stupid rounded off back, so you can't safely put it down while it's shutting down anymore. You got to wait till it totally stops. They're just ridiculous. Waste of money. All right, next side. All right. that's not cool.
Well,
Pretty fun when that happens.
yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, so we'll need another one of those. Okay, well that was a close call. Our cutoff wheel blew up. I don't have another one, but I'm just about through that anyway. So I'm just going to grind it off. And that stupid wheel was off a bit, and it cut down a bit too far in here. So I'm going to fill that with weld on that surface, build it back up a little bit. That's why I clamped it on the first time. Okay. This here has got to come back up to that line with weld. So I got to fill everything from here all the way to here. Wire brush, and yeah, we're going to make sure to keep everything good and clean as we go. We get the most penetration from our welds, and the heat is cranked still. You can see the settings here. Heat is up all the way. Wire speed is up to 6 for most of this job. Sometimes I had that up to 7 or 8, but it was a bit too fast. It was just kind of pushing material out of the way. But you want a lot of heat because this material, this is like 3/4 of an inch thick almost. And this is just a wimpy little 120 volt flux core welder. Close. A little more. Corner's got to come up just a tiny, tiny bit. One thing people don't realize, oh, that's warm, is with this kind of stuff is how tedious it can be. But it's well worth it. Take your time and measure everything like 50 times and just, you're super patient. It usually turns out fairly good. I'm not even that patient. I need to take this right off and basically contour this whole upper surface. I don't want to go into this weld at all. Don't want to compromise that. I don't want to thin out this material right next to that weld. All right, we're crammed back into the garage. I'm just going to show you basically what we did here. That's so far, it's kind of roughed in. The other side there too looks basically the same, but I have got the rear fender, the original rear fender, just kind of sitting on there. It's spaced off about 3/4 of an inch with a piece of 1x2 underneath, and it is way lower. It is, obviously, it's got to go forward. I'm not using this fender. I need to get a proper 55 to 57 fender with the hinge on the back, and it's like pretty specific, and I'll need to space it forward a bit by putting a notch in to clear the swing arm cross member there. But and this looks ridiculous, the lights sticking way up there, but that's like the difference with these when their fender struts are chopped off and you know, the rear fender is lower on the bike. So now this is kind of important to me to kind of keep this line through here, and that's why I wanted to fill in this. You can see where the welds are, where that was all filled. And let's see, I'm just gonna show you from the back here. It's kind of contoured, so I tried not to get too close to this weld in here or undercut it too much. I did a tiny bit here, but there wasn't much weld. If you remember, the corner of this angle here was pretty much sticking out there anyway, so that's like not much to worry about. It's mostly this here. You don't want to take that off. It's still got very thick material there that it's welded to. Like, this is the first one of these I've ever done, obviously, so I'll just see how it holds up, like riding it and stuff. But I definitely, like I say, I wanted to keep this line through here. It would be nice if it wasn't as square, but I actually don't mind the way that looks a ton on these, because it kind of looks like old school, almost like something from the 30s or 40s. Like, you know, a lot of the Harley frames had a lot of forged fittings and pieces on them that looked kind of clunky, but I'm just so glad to have those stupid fender struts off of there and be able to think about mounting my fender like right above the rear tire. And I'll have to fit the seat on here when I get that. It's probably going to be up here somewhere, and you know, I'll figure that out later.